You are now listening to the Just Corrections podcast with your host, William Young.
Can we just get this show on the road?
Does the Correctional Academy truly prepare you to do the job that you are expected to do? In this video, I break down the 4 reasons why I feel like training falls short and what new officers need to know to survive and succeed inside the walls. Greetings, my fearless frontliners, my fellow guardians of the galleries. I'm William Young, and this is my channel. Today, I want to talk about training. Specifically, I want to answer a question that veteran staff constantly discuss and complain about, and a question that a new cadet recently asked me. I was speaking to the new cadet class, talking in front of them, and I always ask them if they have some questions. And a new cadet raised his hand, and he said, will this training actually prepare me for the job that I'm expected to do? Does training actually prepare you for the job that you're expected to do? And my answer was no. But before I explain this, before I break this all down, I want to take a moment to thank the members of the Just Corrections Patreon community, the JCP, especially Gary, Harry, John, everybody, all the people, the brand new patrons. Thank you. Without you, without your support, I could not create this content that you are now consuming, so I truly appreciate it. And if you're watching or listening and you want to contribute, consider becoming a member. There are a couple of different tiers, or if you'd rather support the channel in another way, click the thanks button. If you're watching this on YouTube, on the screen, right there at the bottom there, make a small donation. It really helps support the mission, keep the channel going. So let's get into it. So does training actually prepare you to do the job? No. But I'm going to add an asterisk to that answer, right? An asterisk to my no. So let me explain. I once interviewed a guy about this topic, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, textbooks can't stab staff. And I'm just going to let that sit with you for a moment, right? Textbooks can't stab staff. And that's so good. He's so right. So let's break this down. Break down the 4 reasons why I believe the Correctional Academy does not fully prepare you for the job that you're about to do. All right, number 1, it is virtually impossible to take years of experiences of war stories, of examples, and pack them in to a 6-week or an 8-week training academy for every situation that they present, for every scenario that you run in training. For example, if something happens, there are literally millions of different ways of approaching it. The response is as individualized as the person handling the situation. There are so many different variables. It depends on who's supervising the floor. It depends on the inmate. So let's take, for example, you have a situation where an individual doesn't want to go to the room and they're sitting in the day room. They're sitting at a table. It's time to lock down and they don't want to go. There are several different ways to accomplish the correctional objective, which in most facilities would be to get the individual to the room, back to the room in lockdown as safely and as swiftly as possible. You all have a use of force continuum. You all have de-escalation training. You have verbal judo. You have crisis intervention. You have all of these options available to you that are tools, right, for the individual to use. So think about, for a second, building a house and swinging a hammer. The hammer is the same. A hammer is a hammer, right? Even the nail could be the same, but depending on who holds the hammer and how strong they are and their experience with a hammer, that nail will be driven in the board differently. Okay, so it's no different with this. If I'm more of an aggressive officer or a no-nonsense officer who is more comfortable with my physical abilities because my communication skills maybe aren't that good, I may resort to force. I may feel more comfortable just dragging this individual back to the room, or I may not have the patience to deal with this individual on this particular day because of whatever is happening in my life. And I just decide that I'm going to do the bare minimum, asking him 3 times, giving 3 directives, and then we're going to drag his ass back to the room. And then on the flip side of that coin, another approach is maybe that I'm less comfortable with my ability to use force, with my technique, with just, again, my physical just strength. Maybe they're huge. Maybe I'm tiny. Maybe my leg hurts. Maybe I need knee surgery, whatever it is. Maybe I've had hundreds of hours of training in crisis communication and I want to spend a little bit more time talking. I say all of this to say this. There is more than one way to skin a cat. And for training to give you a roadmap, a step like 1, 2, 3 on how to handle this situation or really any situation is impossible, is nearly impossible, because it is entirely dependent upon how you on how you operate within the confines of policy, of course, right? And how you handle each situation and how you decide to get from point A to point B. Second reason that I don't feel like training properly prepares you to do the job that you're expected to do, because in your academy, you get attention. I won't say that you're coddled. That's not what I mean. That's not the right word, but you are cared for. You are attended to. Your questions are answered in the comfort of a classroom where nothing is actually happening, where there is no real threat to anyone's safety. So the people have time. People have the temperament to address your questions, to allow you to make mistakes, to allow you to sometimes maybe even goof off a little, if you will. So you may develop a sense of familiarity and maybe an unwarranted sense of comfort in the classroom. And then when you go upstairs, when you hit the floors, when you run into staff that have been fighting in the trenches, the staff that are putting up with all of the bullshit, the staff that have 10,000 things on their plate and they don't have time to deal with your questions, right? And even though they absolutely should take the time to help nurture you. And that's another sidebar conversation, because if the veteran staff actually feel like training doesn't properly prepare people, then they need to be that bridge. They need to bridge the gap. They need to help take the information that they're given in training and translate it, help y'all apply it to the real world, situations. But we're going to do that in another video. So when you get upstairs, and I keep saying that because our training is on the main floor and then our housing units are upstairs. But when you get upstairs, you get into the housing unit. When you get out into the yard or wherever you are actually doing the job, you're on your own, and people don't always have the time and the energy and the desire to help you and work with you like they did in the academy. And for some, that's a real shock, because when they enter into this with the idea that they are becoming part of the family, the brotherhood, and that we have each other's back, which we do if something happens to you. We do if there's an emergency. We're really good at that. What we're not so good at is the day-to-day relationship stuff. And I feel like they don't prepare you for why this is. I've heard a lot of, veteran staff won't treat you right. Veteran staff are angry and veteran staff are complacent, and they're not doing the job like you're going to be shown. And some of that may be true, but I think it boils down to this. You have to understand why people behave a certain way, right? You're new. You don't have experience, and you go up into this war zone. You step out into the war zone in the middle of the battle with other people who have already been in the battle, and they're worn out. They're angry. They're jaded, and they're going to be a little shitty. But there's a reason behind that. And I did a video on that not too long ago. Why are the veteran staff so disrespectful? And you can go check it out. I'll put a link in the description somewhere. And there I dig deeper into that. So go check it out. My thing is this: don't take it personal. And it's going to be hard not to. You're going to take it personal, but try not to. Don't take it personally. There's a lot that goes into that. And as you mature in your career, as you spend more time inside the building, on the complex, you will start to grow that shell. You will start to understand why things are happening the way that they're happening. Number 3, training does not know, and frankly, you do not know how you're going to handle the things that you encounter. They can tell you their war stories, and they can share examples with you. They can run you through scenarios. They can show you videos and talk about mental stress and physical dangers, but nobody knows how you're going to behave, how you're going to react in those situations, right? How you're going to carry the job, because the reality is the job is going to change you. The job will affect all of us in some way, shape, or form, but we don't know to what extent that's going to happen until it happens, right? Does that make sense? So, for example, if you look at the stress and how subjective stress is and how stress affects everybody differently, then you can sort of see what I'm talking about, right? Stubbing a toe in the morning or stepping on some Legos, if you've ever stepped on Legos in the morning, or waking up and having your dog piss all over the floor would completely send somebody into a spiral, depending on what is going on in their life. And so we all have our limits, right? We all have limits. So before corrections, my job was working for a mortuary transport company. I owned my own funeral home. My job was removing human remains and picking them up and embalming them and then burying them. So I've seen a lot of shit. So when I see blood or feces or injury, it doesn't really affect me the same way that it would somebody who's never seen that before. So it's hard to prepare a person for that. And I'll go back to number one. We can talk about injuries. We can show you the videos and things. But until you have an individual standing in front of you who's bleeding or who drops down in front of you and starts seizing, then you don't know. And there is a saying that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? And so we give you that plan. We tell you what's going to happen if you get punched in the mouth, but until that actually happens, nobody knows how you're going to react. So it's very hard to prepare you for how you're going to react when it's almost impossible to predict. The best thing that we can do, and the only thing that we can do, is to give you the tools, to show you where to stand, to talk about reactionary gaps, and to do all those things, to show you how to do CPR. And that's what the training is for. Training is to give you the tools, the plan, should the situation arise. And here's the trick. We don't know what the situation is. We absolutely don't know what the situation is because there's 100 million different possibilities. And it's just complicated by the fact that we don't know how you're going to react because there's 100 million different possibilities. So there's that. Folks, if you like this video, if you're getting value in this video, go ahead and click that like button. And while you're hitting buttons and clicking on things, jump over to Amazon and check out my new book, Train to Change: The Unfortunate and Unintentional Consequences of the Correctional Curriculum. I dive into the training aspects of what we're talking about today and how the training changes you necessarily. It changes you, right? Every aspect of your life will be altered in some way, shape, or form by the things that you're going to be taught, that you're going to learn in training. And so because of that change, because you're going to behave differently, I want to give you some tools so you can learn to manage that, to minimize that change so you can still lead a happy, fulfilling life existence without running into some of the crazy challenges that some of your veteran counterparts have ran into. So again, Train to Change, check it out on Amazon. If you like it, get it, read it, leave a review. I would really appreciate it. All right, let's get back to it. We're on number 4. I don't like the way that we train, and I talk about this in my new book, and I'll tell you why. It's not that we're not giving you important information, because we are. It's not that we're delivering the information in a way that you need it, because we are. Everything that you learn in training, everything that we teach you, you need. It's necessary. It's the mental morphosis that I write about in the book. It's the way that we shape your mind, the way that we teach you to think, the way that we teach you to judge and view people in the world and situations is extremely necessary. We teach you those things to keep you alive inside. And we're starting to get better, but we are not there yet. We need to constantly remind you that everything that we teach you, everything that we do inside will affect your mental health, will affect you, the holistic you, your entire person, because you have to behave differently inside. You have to react differently. You have to look at the world differently inside. And because of that, you start to look at the world differently outside. You start to behave differently outside, and it's human nature. The problem is we don't always convey that in a way that sticks. We show you a video or we do it in our presentations or whatever it is, but what we don't tell you is that every single thing that you do, from fighting to CPR to talking with a convicted child molester, all of that slowly erodes you emotionally over time. And if you don't intentionally tend to your wellness, then it's going to get you. You're going to get burned out. You're going to have struggles outside, out of uniform. So what we need to do is to put a warning on every piece of curriculum, every lesson plan that we give you that says, hey, this is going to change your life. Here's what you can do. Talking to you about the dimensions of wellness, talking to you about taking time for yourself, talking to you about what happens and who you can talk to if you're stressed out or anxious or scared. And those are all things that we need to plug into every single lesson plan and then enforce that with our actions as well. So that's one thing I talk about in the book. That's one thing that I'm advocating for now. And that's one thing that we need to absolutely do better as a profession. All right, folks, that's it. We've covered a lot today. That's a lot. 4 of the reasons why training can't fully prepare you. Not doesn't. At the beginning I said doesn't, but that's not true. Why? Maybe sort of it is true. But 4 of the reasons why training can't fully prepare you for the job, and while the real learning happens on the floor, in real time, under pressure, training gives you the tools, it gives you the foundation, but it cannot predict how you'll react. It doesn't always prepare you for the mental, emotional, and physical toll of the job. That's something you have to navigate for yourself. And that's why awareness, adaptability, and taking care of yourself are so important. And I'm going to end this by reading you an excerpt from my book, Train to Change. With every concept we teach, with every survival skill we offer the officers, there should be a piece about wellness. There should be a piece about surviving the emotional impact of our profession, because we are trained to change. Whether or not the change is unintentional is irrelevant, because the changes are still intrusive, and ignoring them doesn't make them less impactful, doesn't make them less dangerous, doesn't help a person heal from the trauma that they incur on shift. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with me today, for listening, for watching this episode of the podcast, of the channel. New episodes are available every day, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Set a reminder on your phone, set a reminder on your calendar. I don't care what you do to remind yourself, just remind yourself so you do not miss an episode. And make sure you subscribe to the show, follow the show, do whatever you're going to do so you don't miss it. Follow us on Facebook. I'm on Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever. Leave a comment, get involved, engage, share the show with your friends, family, fellow correctional professionals, everybody, guys. The Just Corrections podcast. And if you're interested in supporting the show, please consider becoming a member of the Just Corrections Patreon community. There are a couple of different tiers, different options, so check that out. I'll put a link in the description below. And don't forget to check out my books, Train to Change, The Nothing That Never Happened, available on Amazon. And if you'd like to bring me out to speak at your event or present, send me an email at justcorrections.booking@gmail.com. All right, guys, that's all I got. Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.